Hi, it's me, Andrei G, and this is the Aprilia Tuareg 660. Recently, I got a comment online that really hurt me, saying that I rave about every motorcycle as if it were some kind of miracle. Sorry, but that's kind of a problem these days. I've actually been saying this for a long time, that the problem is that manufacturers these days just don't make bad motorcycles anymore. It's really hard to find a bad motorcycle, and even if there were a bad one, I probably wouldn't even get on it, simply because I wouldn't feel like it. You just can't ride every motorcycle out there, so I always focus on the ones that seem cool to me. And this motorcycle, at first glance, it's really cool. At second glance, wow, it's pretty cool. And at third glance, wow, 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 wow. If I were at a different point in my life, I might even want this motorcycle. But let's take it step by step. Aprilia Tuareg 660, which means the engine we know from the RS 660. And basically, with this unit, Aprilia has created an off-road motorcycle that we haven't seen in I don't even know how many years. 20? 30? More than 20. Most important is not like they just took the engine from the RS 660 and bam, we just stick it into the adventure. No, this engine is actually a base for many different motorcycles. And when they created this engine, they already knew that the Tuareg would be made. So it was a well thought out strategy that now allows Aprilia to nicely attack, enter, or even create new segments, because the RS 660 created a new segment. Tuareg, all right, you can't really reinvent the adventure segment, but everyone can try to do it in their own way. The representatives claim that this is something between an adventure motorcycle and a dual sport. A dual sport would be, for example, the KTM 690 or all those old big single-cylinder enduros that we used to know. They say this because the machine is supposed to have, and in fact does have, all the features of a big adventure motorcycle, full electronics, adjustable suspension, blah, blah, blah. The ability to mount luggage and similar things, traction control, cruise control, wind protection, but at the same time, it's supposed to be a lightweight motorcycle. What does lightweight mean for whom? Because if you think about a motorcycle that you'll be riding off-road and it weighs 204 kilograms, but that's ready to ride not with a full tank, but filled enough. I don't remember if that's 40 or 60%, right? Weight is 187 kilograms. Fuel tank capacity is 18 liters. So you can calculate the amount yourself. And is that a lot or a little? In the adventure category, that's not much. But in the category of a motorcycle that you'll be dropping off-road, it's still quite a lot. And I realized that very quickly today during the first photo session, because here's the trick. These motorcycles, for example, the Honda Africa Twin, Yamaha Tenere 700. I'll explain in a moment why this motorcycle reminds me of the Africa Twin. They're the kind of bikes where you ride them, twist the throttle, and of course they accelerate. This one has 80 horsepower, the Tenere has 74, and the Africa Twin has 100. And you ride, and let's be honest, that's way too much power for off-road riding. So you just go brr 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 on second gear, pick up a bit of speed, and this motorcycle really accelerates solidly. And the suspension works, the bike is agile, you go into a turn, it's nice here, sliding a bit there, something here, something there, give it a little more gas. But, oh wow, you have to brake quickly because, for example, there's a photographer standing right in front of you as you're coming out of the turn. So you grab the brake, and at that moment, it turns out that the weight is there because, well, you can't cheat physics. That mass is moving, you have to stop it. And on wet gravel, you just don't have enough grip to stop the motorcycle. And honestly, it threw me off a bit. And in the end, I just had to lay the bike down. The good news is that really only the plastics got a bit scratched. The handlebar didn't even break. Overall, I just picked the motorcycle up. Surprisingly, it wasn't that heavy. It was just the adrenaline, nothing happened, nothing at all. Up it went. But if I had to lift it several times a day, I probably wouldn't like it that much. What's my point? My point is that you shouldn't overdo it and treat this motorcycle as an expedition bike that will let you cross really tough terrain or take part in an amateur rally. Of course, there are some crazy folks which I respect who take adventure bikes to the toughest rallies, and I think they'll love this one, mainly for several reasons. All right, let's start with the engine. The RS has 100 horsepower. Here we have 80, and you know what? I actually prefer the character of this engine, which has less power, but it's, let's say, wakes up faster. In other words, it delivers torque more quickly and is more responsive. I spent the whole day today riding this machine in the low and mid rev range, there wasn't really much point in revving it high because, of course, there are winding roads here, so it didn't make much sense to push it to high RPM. Manus, I was riding on the rear wheel, which it does brilliantly. Sometimes I just rode for a long stretch without wanting to shift up, so I kept going like that, and only then did I probably rev it to the maximum. I know I shouldn't have done that, but we didn't have any other place, so I did it the wrong way. And that was the only moment when I used that power, let's call it the maximum. I just used the high rev range. Other than that, I spent the whole day riding in the middle range. Funnily enough, even off-road, I sometimes rode in second or third gear because it's a rocket. It would pull smoothly even from 2000 RPM without breaking traction, just gripping nicely and powering out of the corner. At the same time, this motorcycle sounds better than the RS 660 because it has a completely different intake, but I'll also be writing about that in the magazine. So the engine is a rocket and the gearbox is also click, 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 super smooth. The quick shifter up and down is optional, but you have to get it because it really works great. So the engine is a rocket, but at the same time, the chassis is too. This is amazing. Aprilia really knows how to do it. Aprilia has always been very good at frames and chassis, and they know how to make it work off-road. That's why I see a bit of inspiration from the Africa Twin here, because, for example, the engine is mounted at 6 points, just like in the Africa Twin. The frame is still tubular and quite delicate, so this motorcycle has a bit of flex. It can bend a little, which makes it work great with the suspension. And the Kayaba suspension is fully adjustable. And what I liked the most was that this suspension performed well both on asphalt and off-road. It's soft. This motorcycle is soft, really cushy, so when you ride it, you go, ooh, but it stabilizes itself really nicely. I generally like soft motorcycles. And thanks to the fact that it's relatively light and so soft, it turns so quickly, so effortlessly. There's absolutely zero effort needed to flick it from corner to corner. And there's grip there because today we rode on wet asphalt, drying asphalt and dry asphalt, and every time it felt good and confident. Above all, it felt confident. Oh, subframe. I think that's also something they could work on. And now tell me, what do you care about more? Because the subframe is welded on, not bolted. So in theory, if you crash, bam, bam, something happens, you bend the subframe. In theory, the frame has to be replaced. Insurance probably declares it a total loss and so on. We can't replace this part. Second thing, the load capacity, because here we can put 210 kilograms on it. And the guys from Aprilia say that with bolts, that wouldn't be possible. I think it would be possible. It would just take a bit more time. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it's a downside, maybe not. What, in theory, gives confidence, especially to beginner motorcyclists, is the electronics. And that's, let's say, another advantage Aprilia has over the competition, which in this case would be the Tenere 700. Here we have traction control and ABS, but it's regular ABS, not cornering ABS. There's no multi-axis IMU sensor here. The same traction control, ABS, cruise control. The cruise control is nice, but this electronics package, for people who know how to ride and want to use this motorcycle more ambitiously, most of them would probably turn it off right away. Let me explain why. There are riding modes, and basically as soon as we all switched to off-road mode and turned off traction control, which is nice because you just click, 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 hold it while riding, and it turns off. Once we turn it off and only briefly tried the other modes, we just stuck with off-road mode and traction control off, because the bike is really easy to control. And as for the electronics, while Aprilia is great with electronics on asphalt, off-road, well, it works, but it wasn't anything special. When I was coming out of a turn and gave it some gas, instead of sliding and holding the line, the bike would kind of cut out a bit. I could have sworn there weren't any big climbs today, but if there had been, we would have had to turn off the traction control. And we know, for example, that KTM has already developed electronics that even when turned on, help pull us up hills, guide us, assist with drifting and so on. So in essence, electronics are probably the only thing Aprilia could still improve. The same goes for ABS. Later, we rode on a kind of off-road loop, let's call it that. And there the ABS didn't bother me, but it also didn't boost my confidence. With those more advanced off-road ABS systems like on Honda or KTM, you just squeeze the lever and it simply brakes as it should. Other than that, it's great, really great. This is a motorcycle that costs, listen, 55,000 zlotys. Is that little? Not really. Well, it's less than the top adventure bikes, but basically it has what all the top adventure bikes offer while also being lightweight. It's also not excessively fast. so we can really open up the throttle. So someone will say right away, no, 80 horsepower, what's that? You need 160. All right, whoever needs 160 can have 160, but I get joy from just being able to open up the throttle. Besides, if I said that this isn't enough power, first of all, I'd be lying to myself. And secondly, I might be crushing the dreams of someone who thinks that 80 horsepower is actually a lot, because it is a lot. This motorcycle goes 190 kilometers per hour. You can even do that off-road on gravel. If you have a long enough stretch of gravel and the chassis really allows for fast riding, just look at how long the swing arm is. I'll describe everything in the magazine because we went off-road into this loop and we already started to get a bit carried away. You know, these tires are dual purpose tires, but pretty soon we were already getting carried away, riding, coming up with ideas, doing spins, drifts, and things like that. I said, hey, okay, stop, let's go home. Because remember, you can't cheat physics, you can't cheat mass. It's still a big machine. And when you start going fast, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And you have to know how to control it. But it's really enjoyable to learn on a motorcycle like this. Really. It rides great. Everything here is well shaped, nice and narrow. The ergonomics are really nice, so you can actually ride enduro on it. The wind protection is actually pretty decent, and there's this little mount for navigation. Plus, you can also buy an add-on here and have navigation displayed on the dashboard. It's just an awesome machine. I joke that if this were a small Africa Twin or a Honda Transal, people would go crazy. It's actually kind of funny because think about this lately. I've been noticing that Harley made the Sportster S, and if it were like a small Diavel, it would be a hit. And at the same time, Moto Guzzi made a proper Pan America because in my opinion, the V85 should be the Pan America. You just need to rotate the engine 90 degrees. Aprilia made the Tuareg, which honestly, if you close your eyes, you might think it's a small Africa Twin. So it's kind of funny. Let me know what you think about this motorcycle, and as always, you'll find more in the all those technical details, especially what's inside this motorcycle, how the engine has been adapted for adventure riding, blah, 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 blah. Take care. Bye.